Hey, everybody. Welcome to this episode of 1031 Rules and my fellow influencers, my CRE influencers. Today with me, Coy Davidson and Ken Ashley. Can't wait to talk to these guys. So welcome, Coy and Ken. So first, Coy. Coy is Senior VP with Colliers in Houston, got 35 plus years in the business. Ken Ashley, Executive Director with Cushman & Wakefield in Atlanta. He's got 30 plus years in the business as well. I am absolutely grateful that you guys could both be here at the same time. And how are you guys doing?
Yeah, thanks for having us on. Appreciate it, James.
Yes, thanks, James. Doing good.
Awesome. Basically, what I'm talking about with everybody, and Coy, we can start with you, is going back as far as you can, what was that initial inspiration to dive into social media? Obviously, social media didn't exist 30 years ago, but there were some digital platforms, and you got involved pretty early. What was the inspiration for you to do that?
Like many people, started at a Facebook account, in the mid 2000s, and I was beginning to see what the residential industry was doing with social media in terms of marketing themselves online. And I thought it was interesting that there didn't really seem to be anybody in commercial real estate. So I had an interest in it. And as we all remember, the great financial crisis hit, and we all took a hit, and we were all looking for new and innovative ways to market ourselves in the business. I started with this, if you remember, Facebook used to have something called stories or notes or something like that. And I wrote basically a blog post that just described what tenant representation was. And I called it What I Do for a Living. One of my longtime childhood friends who I grew up with, who was a very successful restaurateur in Texas and has a chain of like 50 plus restaurants. Anyway, he messaged me and he said, "Hey, Coy, I knew you were in commercial real estate, and I have a retail broker, but I just bought an office building, and if I'd have known that's what you did, I would have used you." And that just set the wheels a turning. I was like, okay, I'm not playing around anymore. So I decided to join all the social networks: Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram. Well, maybe Instagram was around. And most importantly, I decided with some trepidation to do my own personal website, hoping the company wouldn't squash it once I got it up and running, and then they didn't. So that was I wanted to have a personal website because I felt like a lot of my business is referrals and word of mouth. And I think that the first thing a person does when you get referred to them, or even if you cold call them and they don't know who you are, is they're going to Google you, and I wanted to have some control and some content up on the web. So gave me some credibility with a potential prospect. So that was the impetus of it, and I didn't know how it was going to turn out, and it just created a monster and took off.
Yeah, no kidding. Ken, what about you?
Yeah, my story starts with back in April of 2009, that same downturn that Coy referenced, and Karen and I were experiencing something called lumpy cash flow. Because, we're brokers, we wake up unemployed every morning, and four young kids, everybody needed everything. And, it got pretty stressful. And I really had only two options at that point. One was to significantly cut back our lifestyle, which would have been painful, or to succeed. And so I started thinking about, just as Corey referenced, a way to market myself differently, because sales is speaking with the intent to convince, but marketing is what they think about you before you walk in the room. And younger in my career, I wanted to bolster the reputation so that when I talked to an executive, he or she would know that we could get the job done. And so I was talking to a guy named Tony Wilbert, who's still around. He's a reporter with CoStar. And he first mentioned the app Twitter. I went upstairs to my office because we had to then, and signed into my computer and grabbed at Ken Ashley, and I shut it down. I didn't do anything till the end of that year. And I started looking around on Twitter, and there was a guy who was doing it better than everyone else named Coy Davidson. And the 30 minutes that changed my life was when Coy took a call from a direct competitor and was so gracious with his time. He shared his vision, and I began to understand what it was all about. And it's all thanks to Coy.
Wow, what a great testament there.
Yep.
Do you remember what year that was?
That would have been the latter part of 2009. And I had long black hair then.
I definitely had more hair.
Yeah. My story is pretty similar. The difference with me from you guys is that commercial real estate was actually my second career. My degree is in visual communication. I was a graphic designer for 15 years before I got into commercial real estate, largely due to two of my best friends on the planet to this day. We're already in the industry, and that's how I got in. I got on LinkedIn pretty early. I think 2009 is when I got on LinkedIn. I was on Facebook, but nobody was really talking about Facebook on business. So, Coy, to look at that at the time that you did was definitely very cutting edge. I didn't get into Twitter until I started my career with Marcus Millichap, which was in 2015. So, yeah, I just following you guys over all that time and seeing how you literally blaze trails for commercial real estate, and as you guys both know, I'm a Massimo coach, and I coach guys that to this day have still not embraced social media, which it may or may not be for everybody, but to the point that Coy made is that people are going to vet you. They are. They're going to go on Google. They're going to go on LinkedIn. They're going to go on the social medias and see what you're up to. And, if it comes down between you and somebody who's got more of a social influence following, chances are the social influencer is going to win the business. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I export a lot of business around America. We have an accounts business. And first, if there's not a Cushman & Wakefield office, I look for SIOR brokers. But even with SIOR brokers, I will Google them, just like Coy said, to figure out who they are. And so I regularly go through the process of hiring brokers myself, and I talk to executives about what they're looking for when they look at the three of us. And they want true experts. What do you call the person that graduates last in medical school? Doctor. So you're looking for the person that graduated first. And one of the ways we can tell someone is good at their job is someone Coy, like you, James, has written about what you think, what you believe. And I have confidence in those individuals that they understand the trends and they know their market and they can do the job.
Right.
I always felt like half the battle was educating people on who you are and what you do. So how many times have you met someone new, you tell them you're in commercial real estate, and they say, oh, you sell houses. No, and even commercial real estate's a broad field. So, if you look at my content, I stay pretty much in my lane for the same, but I'm an office and a healthcare guy, so that's pretty much what I post about. So, but again, it's half the battle is people knowing who you are and what you do, exactly what you do. It's kind of, it's your online elevator pitch.
Yeah. So, Coy, when you started doing those blog posts and ultimately posting blogs to your website, I got to believe that took a fair amount of time for ramp up. Like, how long was it before you really started seeing some interaction from what you were doing?
I think it didn't really take as long as you might think, just because at the time there wasn't a lot of competition. Like, it wasn't long before I was getting 20 to 30,000 views on my website every month. I don't even get anywhere near that now because the field is so much more crowded and people hire SEO specialists. I still get good volume, but I was just fortunate. The field was wide open at the time. But it did take a lot of time. Writing articles. So, now we have AI that can help you write an article very quickly. But it was definitely time consuming.
Right. And do you still do all your posts on Twitter? For now, Link or X rather?
I do. I do my blog posts, and then if it goes my blog, it goes on X as well, and sometimes LinkedIn, because not everybody's on X, and probably a lot more business people on LinkedIn, but I'm just trying to get as many distribution points as I can.
Right. And how many followers do you have on X now?
44,000, something like that.
Yeah. Ken, I think he's number one on the X list, right? As far as followers?
Absolutely. And it's quite a moat, and it's hard to catch up to. I've been trying. I think 27,000, and the algo is always something to battle with. But James, you referenced brokers that you've been coaching, and I always make clear to people, I am not proselytizing for social media. If you're getting business from your country club and you're making a lot of money, go do it. Right. I just know that the marketplace is getting more and more cluttered, as Coy was just suggesting. And brokers that embrace this, it's like Rod Santomassimo would say, I mean, how much better can you do? If you're making $1 million, could you make $2 million a year if you were willing to use digital tools?
Right.
I mean, I literally went from someone who was known and respected in the Houston market, but nobody really outside of Houston knew who I was outside a few of my college colleagues in other cities, to people all over the country knowing who I was and where I'm from. So it's a head start anyway.
And they also know you like Tex-Mex.
Yeah. You got to follow Coy to know. Guy knows every Tex-Mex place in Houston, probably all of Texas now, right?
Yeah, well, you try to put a little personality into your content, and I do live in Texas, and we have some good Tex-Mex here.
Right, and Coy, you do national accounts as well, right?
I do some national work, not to the extent Ken does, but I certainly have done work in a dozen or so cities around the country.
Okay. All right. So Ken, talk to us about the list. I remember reading, it's been years ago now, who was the gentleman that originally started that list?
Yeah, so there's a guy named Duke Long who's still around. Hello, Duke, if you're listening to this. A good friend of Coy and myself. And we were having a conversation. I was making my buddy calls at the beginning of COVID. Hey, buddy, how you doing? And, Duke told me he was tired of doing the list. And I said, well, I guess I don't need your permission, but we're friends. Would you mind if I did it? And he said, sure. And the baton was passed. And I had no idea what I was getting myself into. The first list, I had the only source of truth was Duke's prior lists. And I had a little bit different view of how I wanted to do it. So I spent a lot of time, I'd go to see everybody that Coy was following and then who they were following and look at content and go through it. So it was many, many, many hours. And we were about to hit publish on the first list. I went online to 99 Designs. I bought the logo that we use today for CREI for $200. And my graphic artist said, why don't you make a badge? And I said, what is that? He said, well, if someone is going to be on the CREI list, do something that would make their mom proud. I said, okay. So the badge is a piece of art that is emailed to every list maker. And then they, if they want to, can put it in their social media. It's got their picture and it says that they're a list maker. And inadvertently, we didn't mean to do it, but it sort of pushed our brand through all of these people all over the world. And now 5 years later, we publish 7 lists, and each list has a list curator volunteer at the top. We will publish later this afternoon our Instagram list for this year. And one of the newest list is a commercial real estate podcast list, which I'm excited about because if you're looking for commercial real estate podcasts, there are not that many sources of truth. We publish the list as sort of community service. I love recognizing people and seeing them get bonus and better splits and move ahead because of our list. But it also began the basis for the formation of this community that we are building around commercial real estate and the use of digital tools.
Right. And so so that was basically 2020 is when you took it over and started building it. And that list originally, you only did, I think it was LinkedIn, Instagram, X. As time has gone on, you've added more platforms.
We've added more platforms, and you're correct. It started in spring of 2020. And so we've added it, and we'll continue to add additional platforms as they make sense. We'll subtract platforms. So we'll see what happens to TikTok to see if it continues to be a viable form. But, people express themselves in different ways. You like different art, you like different cars, you like different houses, people like different platforms. So we try to be inclusive in terms of how folks are using those digital tools to market themselves. And I do want to share in October of 2020 on a Thursday night, I'll never forget it. I had a glass of red wine in my hand and there was a tweet that came out from Coy and it said, hey, we ought to get together. And he was referring to people that were on the list. And he later said he meant to drink beer, but I guess I heard it a little differently. And I hired a laid off Cushman Wakefield event planner who is still with us, the amazing Jamie Kramer. And we're about to hold our 5th CREI Summit in September in Palm Desert, California.
That's right. So I wanted to bring up the first one, which was in Tahoe, right?
Yep, that's right.
Lake Tahoe. Yeah, that was the first one that I went to. I was very excited to go just because I was going to be able to meet, not only the two of you, but others that I had known and come to know for years, but never had that opportunity to meet in person. So Coy actually gets the credit for the let's make this an event where everybody gets together.
Yeah, Coy.
I was kind of the idea guy, but I'm not very good at executing these kinds of things. So Ken is a master at it. So thankfully he took the bull by the horns.
Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously you had some help. I know Natalie Wainwright was part of that initial core.
Yep.
Who else was in there?
Sarah Malcolm was there. Melissa Alexander, Casey. Who am I missing, Coy?
Casey Flannery.
Was Linda Day?
Michael Arnold, Linda
Harrison. Yep.
Yeah.
And it's very rewarding. Natalie actually told me today that she's going to be able to attend, so we're excited about that. Coy will be there. And a lot of folks have been all 5 years. In fact, we did a Spaces last week called Perfect Attendance, people who have come all or going all 5 years to ascertain as to why they keep coming back. And it was interesting. The theme, by the way, is part community, but part also the way we use these tools is changing so rapidly. And now that we've introduced the component around what everybody is studying, which is AI, there's a lot more to talk about this year than ever before.
Right. And I'm sure the conversation, even in regards to content, how content's generated and distributed is different from that first year.
Yeah, that's right. And you know, Coy referenced having to write all this stuff. I mean, just like him, he and I both have written a lot over our careers. But now, you know, whether it's Jasper or whatever AI you want to use, you know, I would say one has to be careful because people could determine inauthentic, you know, stuff that you just faked very easily. But I do think there are very powerful tools where you can put in ideas and then get something to edit. So we can speed up the process of distributing what we think by properly engaging in the use of AI tools. Coy, you agree?
Oh, absolutely. It might improve your, it can improve your writing too. Like you can tell it, I wrote this, and then make it more concise or make it more readable to this target audience. I think we're just scratching the tip of that.
Right.
I mean, I try to study this stuff. That's why I'm looking forward to the summit, because it's just all happening so fast. It's hard to even keep up with. But I think our ability to market ourselves is going to become more efficient for sure, and probably more targeted.
Definitely. Yeah, I don't know how people are not suffering from AI bandwidth, because there are so many different platforms. I kid with Rod Santomassimo, who's done 3 or 4 AI trainings for brokers now. And, I'm like, Rod, how many platforms do you belong to and how many subscriptions are you paying for, And I think he's down to 6 platforms he's for on an annual basis. I know he was hovering around 10 there for a while, but to both your guys' points is that what I've learned is, it's really all about how you train your specific platform, and it's all in the prompt, no matter what platform you're using, because now I'm using Runway. I've actually put Runway clips in some of my YouTube videos. I'm using a new one that I've just signed on to. It's called Lumen 5, where you can create reels without any filming. You just put in prompts, put in some language, and it creates flyby reels. I mean, just really amazing. And then, of course, ChatGPT and all the other, search and like Perplexity and then the image. I know Coy's been having fun with Grok on X. And so, it's what we talk about this next September. I'm sure it will change from that point on. So
there's the interesting. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say there's an interesting aspect to all this. People are using Google search less and less, and there's a new term, AEO, I think they call it, so basically more and more people are using ChatGPT and Grok and the other tools to do search. And I think there's actually going to be a whole other industry similar to the SEO industry that's going to evolve because people are no longer going to go to Google search to who's a good tenant rep broker in Atlanta, Georgia. They're not going to go to Google anymore. They're going to go to ChatGPT or one of the other platforms.
Right. So, Ken, what should everybody know about this upcoming summit?
Well, I think if you want to optimize your BD and use digital tools, there's no other place in commercial real estate where everyone there is focused on this one topic. And I think there are a couple of things you will probably take away. Number one, everyone gets a workbook. And the idea is that you will have a customized plan for your niche, your area, your marketplace. And on Monday morning, you can start to execute and then make more money. Number two, a lot of people tell us that they don't know how to create content or they're confused about what content will help sell. We're going to try to sort through that. And so for whatever your marketplace is, what executives, what eyeballs are you trying to get to read your content and what will help them think you're number one in medical school, if you will. A third thing is we've got two executives coming from a very large company that starts with G that's in the technology business that are going to talk about AI, the latest of the tools. One of them is a technologist, and it's her full-time job to think about AI, and another is a real estate executive who's going to talk about how they use AI. And then finally, I think it is the community that is there. I have this saying, which is not mine, I mean, but been around a long time, iron sharpens iron, and we can get better together. And if you want to hang out with you, James, with Coy, with the greats, the people that are leading the way, this is the time and place to do it. If you think about it, for our micro conference, there's no other way. All of us could get together. There's no way you in your career could spend time with all these people, with Bob Knackel, with just so many great names in this industry, unless you come to CREI Summit. And we are committed. There are 30 volunteers working on the summit now. We're very passionate about this, and we are committed that if you pull out your wallet, you're going to get a massive ROI that will impact your business right away.
Absolutely. And so quickly tell everybody, how can they sign up? How can they get there?
Sure. And anybody that is involved in commercial real estate is invited. Just to be clear, you don't have to be on a list, and maybe you want to be on a list, and we can talk about how you can get there. But go to www.creisummit.com. Both Coy and I are pretty easy to find. You can reach out to us if you have questions about it. And but I would encourage people to go ahead now and make the commitment and make the decision, A, before we sell out, and B, before we lose the hotel room block. We've got a very attractive rate. I think it's $269 a night at the JW Marriott, one of the largest hotels in California. It's absolutely beautiful. And we will have so many great sessions and so many great breakouts. You really got to be there.
Couldn't agree more. And I'm looking forward to clinking glasses with both of you while we're there, as well as everybody else that we have expectations of going there. So really looking forward to it. And that's September 10th, 11th, and 12th, Palm Desert, JW Marriott. Go to the website, CREISummit.com. That's where you will see the agenda. You will also have access to all the lists, and Ken and his team keep all the lists there all the way back to the beginning, that you can go back and see everybody that's on there. And we look forward to, everybody being there and having a great time and learning more content and implementing. That's the big thing. Go get it and then put it into action. Okay. So 2 things that you guys get to do, because this is Best 1031 Online. I am 1031 Broker James. My specialty is representing those people, investors, taxpayers that have owned their investment property for a long time and they're done with it. And they're looking to exit this. And, what's amazing is more than 60% of exchanges fail every year. My goal through Best 1031 Online, both the website and the YouTube channel, is to cut that failure rate in half by 2030. So that's what I'm up to. So if you guys have a 1031 story you'd like to share, Coy, you have one?
Sort of, yeah. I represented a physician. Actually, it was a psychologist, and he previously had a small psych hospital that only had about 15 rooms, and he decided to exit that business. And I found a tenant for him who was willing to sign a long-term lease, and they were a drug and alcohol rehab group out of Florida. They signed a 10-year lease on the property, and he decided he wanted to sell it. And the first thing I did was, I didn't really know much other than surface level stuff about 1031 exchanges, but I went to one of our experts in our office who specialized that and engaged him to co-list the property for me, and he found a 1031 buyer very quickly for the property, and we sold it, and my client was very happy.
Did your client exchange into something out of that?
He did not.
Okay. The reason why I ask is it's actually, there's a lot of business owners that own their real estate separate from their business. And they don't realize that if they, in fact, sell that property, that property does, in fact, qualify for a 1031 exchange. But sale leasebacks are very popular, where they sell the business, they maintain the real estate, put a tenant in there. Obviously, if you get a credit-worthy tenant signs a nice long-term lease, now all of a sudden they can get a lot more for their property versus it being vacant. And now they've got even more equity to exchange into something passive to help fuel that retirement of theirs. Ken, you got one.
So one of the first transactions in my career was a 1031 exchange, and fortunately I had a senior broker to help me, but it involves my family, and it was like 5 great-grandfathers ago. They were able to basically hide some raw materials during the Civil War, and after the war occurred, there was, when they were done and the rebuilding era, there was a huge need for raw materials. So he hauled all of those raw materials, cotton and other things, to Atlanta and sold them for gold. And I'm told, the lore is, he literally walked up and down Peachtree Street and bought property with that gold. The last piece of property that the family owned when I got in the business, it was a time to sell it. And so we did put together a deal with a senior broker. I was pretty happy to get a commission from a 1031 exchange, and the family 1031 into a piece of office real estate in Atlanta. It's single story, creative economy kind of product. And all these years later, I bought out every family member and continue to own and operate that. And I'm very thankful to the 5 greats grandfather for so many years ago for being smart, because it allowed me and my family to continue to prosper to this very day, thanks to a 1031.
Wow, what a great story. So glad I was able to capture that. I think there's a book there, maybe even a good movie. I mean, the history from Civil War today, what an outstanding story. Thank you for sharing that. Gentlemen,
Thank you.
I have everybody, they have to say on the show. Coy, you'll go first, and then Ken, you get to go. And it's basically, you're going to say, because the best 1031 is a successful 1031.
Okay.
So, Coy, you get to go first.
Because the best 1031 is a successful 1031.
Awesome. Ken?
Because the best 1031 is a successful one.
There you go. Awesome. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being on the show. I cannot wait again to give you guys big hugs here in September. And again, for all you guys watching, be sure to like, subscribe to my channel, Best 1031 Online. But even more so, get to the summit. Go to CREsummit.com, sign up, join, be there. You get to see all 3 of us, plus all the best influencers in commercial real estate all over the country will be there. Thanks again, guys.